Hey, this is Sam Christoff. In the previous video, I showed you how to set up Unity 3D, and in this video, we're going to install Visual Studio Code as our code editor for our game development. Unity includes the mono editor, but I'm a big fan of Visual Studio Code, and that's what we'll be using for all of our development. So we'll get that installed, and in the next section, we will integrate the two together. So again, I'll start by launching Chrome. And I'll just search for Visual Studio Code and go to the top link, which is code.visualstudio.com, and then I'm going to hit download for Windows. And the download will start. And just to be clear, Visual Studio Code is not the same as Visual Studio. It's a much smaller install, much more flexible, and has lots of community-based plugins. So it's a great project for any code editing you do. I'm going to click to launch the installer, and Microsoft will ask if I want to install it, and I'll say yes, I do. And then we'll just quickly click next and agree to the license agreement. The default location is good in program files and Microsoft VS Code. Hit next again and choose yes that I want to add it to the start menu. We want to make sure we do add it to the path here that's checked by default. That'll just make sure that your computer, other apps on your computer know where to get at VS Code, and I don't need to check any of the other ones. So I'll hit next, and everything looks good, so I'll hit install, and it will quickly extract the files and install them. All right, and we cheated just a bit there and skipped about a minute worth of install time, but when everything's done, launch Visual Studio Code will be checked. And we'll leave that checked and hit finish, and VS Code will launch. It's going to take me to the getting started page. I'm just going to minimize that. And here we have it. Visual Studio Code is now installed. The next thing we need to do is install the C# plugin for Visual Studio Code. And that gives us IntelliSense, so it'll tell you how to complete some code as you're writing it. Makes it a lot quicker to write code and debug your code. So in the on the left side, very bottom icon is the extensions icon. I'll click that. I'm going to make my window full screen here as well. And this is the extension browser. In the upper left, there's a search box. I'm just going to type C#. And that will go browse the online repository for extensions. And the first one is C# for Visual Studio Code. You can see the icon for it there. And I'm just going to click this little green install button. And that is going to download and install the C# extension for VS Code. Once that's done, it's already done, you can see it turns to a reload icon. We need to restart Visual Studio Code for that plugin to be applied. So I'm just going to click the reload button, and I'll say yes, indeed, I do want to reload it. And it just kills VS Code and brings it right back. And now you can see that I have one installed plugin, and it is C# for Visual Studio Code. And the last thing we'll do here is install one more extension for Unity. So I'll just search for Unity, and Debugger for Unity is the first one that comes up, and I'll click to install that. And that's going to let us use Visual Studio Code to debug code while it's running in Unity. So we can do things like step through the code, set breakpoints and things like that. It's definitely going to make all of our development a lot easier. And again, it's almost instantly installed. I'll just click reload. And yes, I want to reload. And now you can see I have my two plugins installed. So that's it. Visual Studio Code is installed. We've got our plugins installed, and we should be good to go. In the next section, we will actually integrate it with Unity and get everything set up to start working on our game. If you have any questions or comments, post below. And if you have ideas for other videos that you'd like to see, let me know. Thanks. If you have any questions or comments, post below. And if you have ideas for other videos that you'd like to see, let me know. Thanks.